Computer. Three, two, one, go.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Corey Thompson with Above Board and Dice Tower Dish.
And this is the Podfather of Gaming, Stephen Bonacor. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 317. And we're recording this on May 3rd, 2024. Board Games Insider is proud to be powered by Board Game Geek. Corey, my friend, sadly, we missed last week because of, well, I'm in
It's all your
Hawaii.
fault. Yeah, it's all your
I'm
fault.
I'm on a cruise ship in Hawaii. This is not bragging. This is Podfather the cruise. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So now I'm 3 hours behind Corey and 12 hours behind Ignacy. So no matter what we tried to do, because we are going to do an all news show because the amount of news we have is so huge and the news is so big that we just have to do basically all news today. So
Oh yeah.
it's crazy. So we tried to get all three of us together. And again, I apologize to people have been coming up to me saying, "Hey, what's going on with Ignacy? Ignacy, something's wrong here." I'm like, "No, nothing's wrong.
No.
He's a busy guy." And well, when we're 12 hours apart, it's like I got up at 6 a.m. He would have had to get up. He would have had to be up. And well, Ignacy's not a night owl.
No, it's so hard to get our schedules all in sync.
Yeah.
And I'm probably the easiest. I will get up as early as you want. I will stay up as late as you want. So I'll fall in wherever.
And I
And
won't,
Ignacy's probably the toughest.
and he is, but I won't get up as early as you want, and I will not stay up as late as you want. But anyway, Corey, tell us what's happening with you over there on the West Coast.
So I'm in LA right now, at Aboveboard Studios, and things are so freaking exciting here. So Aboveboard Studios is what's known as an XR studio. We have a gigantic 270-degree green screen with intense computer systems to keep up with graphics in real time and react to camera movement. We have automated robotic cameras. We had our first film shoot using the full capability of the studio. All
Wow.
computers running, full staff. We had Unreal technicians on site designing worlds and keeping up with it. And it was amazing. Agreed, I did nothing. I sat and watched. But we did a D&D campaign. We've started an epic campaign that is DM'd by Travis Oates, my business partner. And it's in a world that Travis created when he was 17 years old, a
That's
world
cool.
of gods that still live amongst men and have all the world divided up into gods and sub-gods and demigods. We had special guests Becca Scott and Jason Charles Miller,
That's
both
so
of which
cool.
have done tons of D&D stuff, including Critical Role and things like that. So it was amazing. We filmed for like 12 hours. Everybody loved it. Everybody was laughing and having such a good time. We have 8 players and the DM. Hopefully that'll get edited and up online soon because I am just so blown away with how fun it was. Um, it was really amazing just to watch them on, and it sounds long, but man, it just drew me in the whole time, and it
That's
looked
awesome, dude.
so good. Also, amazing proof of concept for our studio. So now we're looking into using the studio more often and renting the studio and all these big plans we've had since the beginning.
Did you play in the role-playing game?
No, I didn't play. There
Okay.
were 6 of our cast in
Okay.
Above Board and Becca and Jason. So 8 players and Travis DMing. But
Cool. Very
I
cool.
was crew in the background, you
There
know.
you go.
So, and then we've got the Bonacor trip coming up. I mean, you're always on a trip, so I have to be more specific. But Stephen is coming to my place in the Napa area uh, later this month, and then the two of us are going to be at KublaCon,
Kubla Khan.
along with Greg Benson from Above Board. So anybody at KublaCon, come on up. Bother Stephen. He loves being bothered.
Love it.
Bring me food. Bother Stephen. It'll all be great.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for that trip. I might as well mention that right now that when we get together at your place, we tend to make slight excursions into the Napa Valley, into the Sonoma Valley, and enjoy some amazing wines there. But we're going to also be hanging out with some of your friends and associates because there's a little
Yeah,
birthday
we'll do
party
a
going to be
game
going on.
day and have a good
Yeah.
old time.
It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to that. And then, of course, as you mentioned, we roll into KublaCon, where I am a guest of honor, which is lovely. Aldo
Very
GOC,
special
who
guest of honor.
I don't know if he used that part of it, but I will. Very special guest of honor. And so we'll be doing that, and I'm so happy that Corey, you're bringing down some of the team to actually do some filming too. Now,
Yeah,
I haven't been asked to be part of any of that, but I'm sure that we can figure out some ways
we'll
of
work something
interjecting.
out.
I'll just pass in the background and give you the finger or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure something out. I think it'll
That
be.
works. It'll be our best selling video.
I bet it would. I bet it would. What else we got? So, as I mentioned, yes, this is Podfather the Cruise. We are here. There's 49 people on the Ovation of the Seas, and at the moment we are
How
docked.
cool.
We are docked at the big island of Hawaii itself, right? Hawaii, the state of, is an island chain, an archipelago of 8 major islands and 1,000 actually tiny little islands as well. People don't usually know that. And yesterday we went on what was the absolute longest excursion that I've ever been on, probably longest day trip I've ever been on. We
Wow.
were out for well over 12 hours yesterday, and we did an incomplete
Phew.
circle of this island. The big island of Hawaii, the size of this is twice the size of every other island in the Hawaiian island chain. So just think about it. So it's huge. To go around it with no traffic, it's about 7 hours. So we literally went around the island, stopping at really interesting places along the way. We stopped at 2 different coffee growing places and sampled their Kona coffee, which was absolutely
Nice.
amazing. We had lunch at one of those places, just looking over the fields of coffee. It was beautiful. We stopped for stargazing at night. That was really special. So
Oh, I'm so
I've
jealous.
I've never experienced. So yeah, I've been camping many, many times, of course, and you see the stars, all lit up. But when you're doing that, you usually have this not you have a small portion of the sky because there's trees and all that kind of stuff. We had essentially a 360-degree view because it was very flat where we were of the sky and zero light pollution. So it was just a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful thing to behold. So that and we went to Volcano National Park and we saw the steam vents and the sulfur vents. Just an amazing trip.
Wow.
About 25 of us of the 49 did that excursion, and it was just really incredible. So now the rest of this trip, of course, is going to be gaming. We're going to be leaving the Hawaiian Islands very soon and going half trans-Pacific back to Vancouver. So gaming, I'm going to be playing War of the Ring. I've promised some people that. It's going to be
Wow.
fun. Yeah, going to be great. Um,
So cool, man.
yeah, really looking forward to that all. And now we got to get over to what the all about the news here because it's been crazy news. Let's get
News,
to
news, news.
the event deck. All right. So the first thing on the docket here is the biggest of the big news.
Yes.
And that is that the Embracer Group, parent company of Asmodee, the
Yeah.
parent company of Middle Earth Enterprises, the parent company of Dark Horse Comics, and the parent company of all of these other
Eidos
electronic
Video Games,
games.
Crystal Dynamics. They just sold off Gearbox, which is the Borderlands. They basically a whole bunch of media and video game assets.
It's absolutely amazing how big this company is. And they have announced that they are splitting, they're a publicly traded company. They are splitting into 3 separate publicly traded companies.
Yep.
Um, and that's going to be the AsmaDay Group on its own. And then the other one is going to be Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends, they called it. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a moment. And the other one, they called it Coffee Stain and Friends, which essentially is the Dark Horse Comics.
Right.
Where the electronic games portion fits in is not disclosed exactly.
But
So
they've sold off two of their biggest video game assets. So who knows
yeah,
where the rest will fall.
right. So there was all kinds of discussion about this. The one of the biggest takeaways from this was that in the AsmaDay portion of this spin-off, one company becoming three separate companies, AsmaDay Group was going to be, put it in a nice way, saddled with. They were going to be
Yeah.
given almost $1 billion in debt.
900 million euros.
Yeah, right. So
Now,
that's
and
a
this is
fairly
all we
significant
should
number.
just review real quick that this is probably holdover from uh the failed merger or investment capital from the Saudi group Savvy.
Right, right.
Savvy had promised 2 billion and it didn't work out.
Let's recap that very briefly. A year ago, just a little more than a year ago, the Saudi, I think it's called the Sovereign Fund. It's
The company's called Savvy, SAVVY.
say VVY, and they were supposed to come forward with $2 billion in capitalization money for Embracer Group to
Right.
continue doing what they're doing, to continue buying new companies, to fund
And
more growth.
Embracer accelerated spending in anticipation of this.
And guess what? That deal fell through for whatever reason. It was never disclosed why it fell through. So since
So
it
there's a
did,
big debt now from spending
there's a big debt
and from previous loans.
from previous loans, from spending, and since that point where that fell through, a bunch of things have cascaded, so to speak. Embracer's stock, as soon as that news came out, plunged from $4 a share to $2.50 a share, which is when I bought a little bit of the stock because I saw that and I'm like, all right, well, I can take a little flyer on this. But I'm not your financial advisor, Corey. Make sure you do not invest based on that, okay?
I've noted I do everything you do.
So the stock tanked, number one. The Embracer began a series of cost-cutting maneuvers. They laid off over 1,000 people across all the groups,
Yeah, and
and
they
Asmodee.
curtailed the famous acquisition train that Asmodee was on.
They curtailed that. I specifically know of at least one major acquisition that was stopped, period, and is not even in negotiations any longer.
Yeah.
They literally just began to do everything possible to reduce their cost structure.
Tighten the purse strings.
Right. Now, the interesting news in all of that is that Asmodee continues to be by far the most profitable portion. Now, I can't say that exactly because certainly Middle Earth Enterprises must be doing well. They just print money, right? They just license that IP out
Yeah,
and
but they're
license
weighing it
it.
against the cost that they bought this company for because it's a
Right,
new acquisition.
right. And they were part of the whole acquisitions that Embracer was doing. Okay, so we have all that background. And now Embracer is going to split the company into three parts with the mental thought process that that they are, what is the expression, the sum of the parts is greater than the
Greater than the
whole,
whole.
right? Now, a little commentary on that if everybody doesn't mind for a second. When companies do this, and they also when they do stock splits, people have heard about
Mhm.
stock splits, right? That they take a stock and they just say, okay, you have one share. We're going to give you 10 shares for your one share. But of course, the price is going to go down for each share by, by a tenth, right? Each share is going to have a
Yep.
tenth.
Yep.
So net, there should be zero change in what you
But
own.
human
However,
psychology.
however, because of human psychology, number one, and because on the actual real side of it, when these things happen, more people potentially can invest, right? If I can't
Yep,
afford to buy you know, 100 shares of a stock at $1,000, I might be able to buy it when it's only $100 a share, right? So that's
yep.
kind of the part psychology way of things happening. So they believe
And
that this is going
ask
to
a
help.
waiter if they get better tips if the bill is split among 15 people or if it's a single bill.
It, it, do they? I don't think so, right?
They do.
Do
Everybody
they?
tends to tip a little better, and then all the tips add up to a bigger total tip.
So why do they always add the tip on when it's a large crowd? They don't want to get stiffed, I thought.
Because large crowds get stiffed. If you
Yeah.
split it among 15 bills, then you tend to get better tips.
There you go. Okay. Well, so, so
Anyway,
so the thing is here that they're doing this, but Asmodee Group, right? The one of the three is taking on $963 million, which is the now
900 euro. Nice
900
even number.
euro. 900 euro um is what they're going to now have to pay back in in the loans
Now,
that were
this,
secured.
yes. And what they've done, and I know you're leading up to this,
Hmm.
is they have actually renegotiated an older loan uh, with the EU essentially. And so they've gotten financial backing to support the company through this debt. So they are given 900 million euro for a loan for 18 months.
Exactly. Right. So it's not like goodbye, guys. Here's your debt and go. They've actually secured financing to make this work for them. Um, now it's still quite a bit of money, and if you look at what Asmodee is making per year, just all right, their net profit. So where is this money going to come from, right? Besides going out and getting, this is essentially a short-term loan. They're supposed to pay this
18
back in
months.
18
Yeah.
months. That's pretty short term. Um, besides that, well, how much money do they make? Well, they don't make 1/3 of 900 million euros. Well, not even 1/3. I mean, that you know, it's they don't make 600 million euros a year in net profit. So they have to have a loan against this debt, a short-term loan against this debt. So it's a very interesting situation. Some people are screaming that this is the end of Asmodee. I
No,
am
no,
not,
they saddled the debt with AsmaDay because AsmaDay can handle it because they're the most profitable part of the company.
without a
This
doubt.
loan, yeah, yeah, this debt could have killed Dark Horse, for example.
Oh, it would have destroyed Dark Horse. It
Yeah.
certainly wouldn't have been great for Middle Earth Enterprises, but
Even if
Asmodee
they had
is.
divided it equally among the three, it would have been devastating. Asmodee could handle it.
Yeah, but my point here is that can they? I mean, they're going to. Let's put it this way: they're absolutely going to handle it. In fact, here's an interesting point of this entire conversation: is that the market, right? The market is the final arbiter usually of good and bad business decisions. Um, on the news when this came out, the stock price for Embracer Group went up. Now I haven't looked today at what it was, but certainly it hasn't dropped significantly. So the market was saying, you know what, we do believe that the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, and we like this.
Sure.
Um, and 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 here's a little bit of extra insight. I actually spoke to somebody at Asmodee, not a highly placed source, but I spoke to somebody there, and they were saying that there's not going to be a problem like getting the IPs that Asmodee was going to get, right? We talked about the fact that, oh, this is excellent before when they were bought by Embracer, and that they would now have access to all these. They have access to Lord of
Yeah.
the Rings IP. They have access to the comic IPs, to the electronic game IPs. Because they have the strong relationships, even though it's not the same company anymore, they will still have right of first refusal, so to speak, right? They're going to still come in
Yeah,
and say, and then on the other hand, though, other companies will have probably very good access as
right.
well.
There won't be
So,
an exclusivity going on. The big thing that tells to that is within AsmaDay, the division that was put up to match games with IPs was Office Dog. And there's been a restructuring in AsmaDay now. Office Dog has turned into a larger portion, and it now covers Z-Man,
yep,
uh, and Office Dog and several other divisions within AsmaDay. They're all under one group now, so they have confidence in these relationships.
absolutely. So this is just all extremely interesting. I think that in the end, this is going to be a big benefit specifically for AsmaDay. And the reason is
Yeah,
they can now, after they digest this and they, figure out all the financing that they need to do, they are now back to charting their own course again,
exactly. They're independent from Embracer.
right? So, and let's give a little more of a history lesson. 20 something years ago, not more than 25, there were just two, three guys out of a garage that started Asmodee, and now it's a $3 billion company. So it's amazing
Yeah.
where it has come, and now independent again. And I think in the end, this is going to be good for them as they then probably start going back to that old business model of like going and getting the strongest IPs out there and creating this big Goliath. I shouldn't use that name. This big monster of a hobby game company, which is rivaling Hasbro now. In fact, it's a stronger company than Hasbro is. Not quite as big, but it's really, really, really.
It depends which aspect of the market you're talking about, but certainly within
Yep,
our world of board gaming.
absolutely. All right. And speaking of Hasbro, Corey, we always do a lot of news on Hasbro, because as the big guys go, so do the small
Well,
guys
we were
often.
just saying they report often. And I mean, this is not a dramatic news story about Hasbro. It's just another report about how is Hasbro doing because everybody's wondering, everybody's
Hmm.
concerned.
And we have them.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
from ICB2, Hasbro has announced that their numbers are up. So Hasbro's total gaming sales, including Magic the Gathering, were up for first quarter 24 as the overall company began to recover from post-COVID issues. So good news, we kind of knew that Hasbro toy was down and Hasbro game, especially WotC, was up. And this is more evidence to that.
Right. Exactly. Continuing on an interesting slope where they can't make money in the mass anymore, but mostly doing particularly well in the hobby side of the world. And then CMoN, right? Also big company. Don't worry, guys. We're gonna have some small
Common
company.
name in the industry.
We're gonna have some small company news in a moment as well. CMoN sales were flat in 2023, but a big number. So they were around $45 million in sales as per ICV2's reporting. Worldwide sales of CMoN were roughly flat in 2023 at 45.1 million versus 45.3 million in 2022. The company
And
reported.
CMON being publicly traded in Hong Kong, all these numbers are
Yep.
available.
All these numbers are available. Roughly half of the company's sales are in North America, with the rest divided between Europe at 33%, Asia at 14%, and Oceania.
Yeah,
Sales through Kickstarter made up 58% of the company's
they are a
sales.
Kickstarter driven company.
They
So,
most certainly are, with sales through wholesalers at around 40% of sales.
but
Given
tell me, is there something exciting going on with CMON?
what would that be, Corey? Yes, there is. Why don't you tell us about it? Such a good, she's so good at like, moving from story to story.
I just like interrupting you.
That's it.
I have gotten more praise about interrupting you when you're talking than about anything else in the
Oh,
podcast.
that's just great. That's beautiful.
So again, we have an ICV2 story that CMON has acquired Japon Brand. And Japan is the publisher that originally brought Love Letter, Machikoro, things like that. So, Japanese board and card game producer Japon Brand and CMoN Limited have reached an agreement for Japon Brand to become part of CMoN Limited. The company's just announced. Japon Brand will continue as an independent agent, serving the Japanese and worldwide markets with the benefits of CMoN's infrastructure and management.
This
So,
is this is actually and we talk about the big emerging board game areas, and Asia is certainly one of them. Japan for the longest time had some of the most innovative stuff coming out, and Japan Brand specifically was a sort of a, a conglomeration of Asian designers and Japanese mostly designers that they would bring in and then pitch to companies across the world. So Stronghold used to go to them and meet with them every Essen, and we would meet with the head of Japan Brand or the sales agent. His name was Taksan. Well, we spoke to him. He's a lovely man, and we would pick up a whole bunch of their games and play them and try to bring them out to the market. And we certainly did for some of them. And this is going to be interesting because now this is going to be a CMoN company, fully owned by CMoN. So it's going to be interesting to see if other companies will now have access to all of these interesting designs that are coming out of
yeah.
Japan.
And likewise, to give another segue, if you thought that AsmaDay Embracer was the only huge player in this acquisition conglomeration market, there's a story I find really interesting, that the Kadokawa Group, which most people don't know offhand, but this is an Embracer-like parent company that owns tons of stuff. The Kadokawa Group owns From Software, which is the video game designer that does Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Elden Ring.
And they're
Anyway,
valued at $2 billion. So yes, they are an Embracers,
they're big.
almost that big.
So the Kadokawa Group has purchased Arclight. Arclight is the largest Japanese publisher, and coincidentally, they're also the owners of the Tokyo Game Market. So the Tokyo Game Market is now under new ownership.
That is really interesting.
So,
Arclight's another company that that we would meet with. Usually represented. It's funny. They usually were represented by the same person, Taksan, who I just mentioned, at Essen, and he would be pitching the games from all of the Japanese companies. He's just a very good salesperson. He'd be showing us all of the games, the Arclight games, the Japan Brand games. So this is off of Board Game Wire, by the way. Our good friends over there. So thank you for doing such great work with your reporting. I think that we're going to see this. This could be one of those big moves, Corey, as you implied there,
oh yeah,
where Kadokawa might be now attempting to grasp a bunch of very important things in the Japanese market. They already you mentioned the Tokyo Game Market just ended. That's the biggest Asian trade show, consumer
yep,
show out there. And now they're now owning Arclight, the biggest Japanese publisher. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen there.
yeah. It's just fantastic news, just showing how powerful the Japanese side is.
Yeah. And here's one that I think this is kind of a news story that we could say, we're moving along in a good way in our industry. GAMA, this is one of the ones I wish Ignacy was here for. But the GAMA announced the election results and then their officer election. And for the first time, the executive board members, which is the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary of the board of directors of GAMA, is all women. I think that is just wonderful. Nicole Brady, president, Monica Razzo as vice president, Garima Sharma, treasurer, and Rhonda Becker as the secretary. So, that to me is just good, feel good news that we've made a lot of progress in the industry, which obviously was male dominated forever. And now we're coming and bringing that back in a little bit. So congratulations to all those very talented people who are taking the major reins at GAMA.
Absolutely, absolutely. And GAMA's had problems in the past, and I really hope that this is a new age for GAMA, that we can make this professional organization what it is supposed to be, a resource and strong ally for all aspects of the gaming market, gaming industry.
Right, right. So Corey, this is next one is definitely in your neck of the woods, the
This
LA.
is pretty interesting. So there are two movie announcements. Quickly, the Monopoly game, Hasbro has optioned it and sold it to be a movie, and this is with Margot Robbie's company and Lionsgate. Uh, there's no details about what kind of Monopoly movie this is going to be, but there's going to be a Monopoly movie. I think they're hot on the heels of Barbie movie, which no one could figure out what that was going to be, and it did so well.
Did
But
so well.
also, they're remaking the Clue movie. Um, so Clue is a beloved 1985 movie with Tim Curry, and Sony Pictures and TriStar closed a deal with Hasbro to create a new Clue movie. Now, what's really interesting is kind of the story behind the story on this. Hasbro used to own a film studio called E1, which they bought in 2019. They bought E1 for $4 billion, and this was going to be their film side of Hasbro. And all of these movies, there was going to be all the Hasbro products were going to have movies. It didn't go as well as they had intended. E1 has a long history. They've been a film studio longer than they were owned by Hasbro. They've done a lot of great stuff, but Hasbro, for whatever reason, sold it again in August of 23 for 500 million. So E1 was purchased for 4 billion, was sold for half a billion. Kind of business that I tend to do. And they sold to Lionsgate. So what's going on right now is Hasbro is trying to negotiate final deals on all of these IPs now that they don't have their own film company anymore. And what's interesting is a lot of these are happening with Lionsgate, which is who they sold their film company to. So, long Hollywood story about movies that may or may not be great.
Yeah, but Clue, the original Clue movie was for me fantastic. So I'll check this
It
one out.
was really interesting, experimental. A lot of people have so much love for the Clue movie. I remember it being kind of campy and I thought it was fine, but I'm amazed how much it has evolved into a cult film and people
It is a
just
bit.
go
It
crazy for it.
it definitely is a bit. So here we have some more AI news, Corey, coming from Dicebreaker.com that Stonemaier Games, the makers of course, Wingspan and the new Worm Span, have
Yeah,
committed to not use any form of AI to replace or augment, and that was a quote, creative work, but admits there are
I
gray
the full
areas.
quote is really good, and I have a lot of respect for Jamie. So Jamie Stegmaier, the owner of Stonemaier Games, has very strong moral compass with aspects of the game industry, and he walks the walk. A lot of people will talk about I'm against this and for that and won't do this, but Jamie, I really respect how strong he is on these decisions. So Jamie said, "Quote." Stonemaier Games does not, has not, and will not use any form of AI to replace or augment creative work. If we're creating something, we want it built from the ground up by talented people from different backgrounds, perspectives, and cultures, not an algorithm, especially not an algorithm that borrows without permission or at least proper credit from the original artists, unquote. Now, Jamie did go on to further say that there is a use for AI, not in the sold creative arena. Things like placeholder and certainly Stegmaier has a lot of digital versions that have AI players that learn how to play better and play with people. That's a totally different realm.
Right. We and
Uh,
we've talked about that it's the concept of having AI being used in the game, like in apps, right? And
Yeah.
potentially doing things to help game masters, right? For instance, right, in
Oh yeah,
role-playing arenas.
absolutely.
So I think that there's going to be a
Or
big
even
usage
play
of it.
testing to get a jillion play tests done all at once to see big trends on games.
That
So I totally
potentially
agree with
huge. Hmm.
Jamie's stance on this. I think is one of the most thought out, well placed stances, and I'm very happy that he talked about it.
Very, very
Speaking
cool.
of Stonemaier,
More from Dicebreaker. Go ahead. You like the way we do that, huh?
so I know. It's almost like I went in and touched up the news stories and the order.
Listen to you.
I know, I'm great. So I'm really excited. Stonemaier announced their next title, and Stonemaier is one of those high-end, very well-polished studios that they don't put out a ton of games, and when they do, people stand up and take notice. So Stonemaier's new announcement is the board game Vantage. Vantage is a cooperative roguelike board game with a heck of a hook. This is straight from Dicebreaker. The box will contain more than 1,700 cards with unique illustrations. Vantage draws inspiration from Breath of the Wild's exploratory freedom and will publicly launch in 2025. So this is amazing. This is going to be an open world, I'm guessing, creation, crafting system, exploratory RPG roguelike board game. This is a tall order. Video games have definitely moved along this arena. There's so many video games that are open world, do what you want, go what you want, go where you want, build what you want, be the character that you want. It's a hard thing to pull off in board games, but I think if anybody can do it, Stonemaier can do it.
Yeah,
So
and
I'm
if you think
super excited about this.
and if you think about it, yeah, coming on the heels of the that AI art announcement, they've got a huge tall order in art alone. If they've got 1,700
1,700
unique
unique.
cards,
Yeah.
well,
Yes.
start anybody out there who does illustrations. I think that you should go and talk to Stonemaier like really quickly because
Well, Stonemaier definitely sells their brand on art. Their games are gorgeous.
yes, they are.
Wingspan, no one will argue. Wingspan sold well, both by game design, but by art. Their art was game changing. Bad
with
pun.
without a doubt, Wingspan, which is an excellent game, so don't take it this wrong.
No, no,
It
no. And I don't want to take away from the design.
looks so beautiful, and therefore, and and it's got that unique theme that people just dragged. They were just
So
absorbed into the game.
we are definitely in the age where art is the lubricant that brings new players into a game.
You really think you should be using, terms like lubricant on the show? I think. Well, I mean, we're not on Dice Tower Network anymore, but
Moist.
oh, yeah. Oh God.
I just like
Uh,
making you uncomfortable.
you make me
So
very uncomfortable. You know that.
Dicebreaker said players will have complete freedom of exploration, powered by over 1,700 cards that show interconnected locations, resources, tools, and other facets of the planet from a first-person perspective. So excited about this.
You're
The
a
illustrations are going to be by Valentina Felic, Soren Medding, and Emilian Rodaval.
you're a
Uh,
tool.
I'm just reporting the news.
On to news that was, we think it was leaked, but now it is fairly widely known, and we've gotten permission from a senior person at AsmaDay that we can talk about it, and it's on Board Game Geek anyway. The Fellowship of Bauza, Antoine Bauza,
And
Cathala,
Bruno
and
Cathala.
Dutrait head to Middle Earth. Corey, this is a great one. Those are
So
some great names,
it's
and
fantastic. So Board Game Geek gave a very tactful story that showed some of the art that had been officially released and didn't say what the game was, but it's very much a Lord of the Rings art piece by Dutrait, and it's gorgeous. But now it's been generally leaked that Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth, which is a variant of Seven Wonders Duel, is going to be released by Repos AsmaDay. And I can say I've played it and it's amazing. It's I was so impressed with it. It has the gameplay structure of Seven Wonders Duel, which I think is an amazing game anyway, but it is different enough that I feel very good about having both of them. It has an area control army board that instead of the military just collecting military symbols on cards, the science is done a little different. And what's really cool, the blue scoring cards in Seven Wonders are now an advancement of the ring. So if the good side player plays ring cards, they move a slider along a ring track, moving the ring towards Mount Doom. And if they make it to Mount Doom, they win. If the bad guy side, the shadow, plays a ring card, they move a Nazgul on top of this slider towards the ring. So there's a large slider that goes towards Mount Doom. There's a Nazgul on the large slider that moves relatively towards the ring. And if the Nazgul gets the ring, they win. And it was so fun. I had such a good time with it. I can't wait.
Sadly, I did not get a chance to play this.
Well, that's because you're not much of a Lord of the Rings fan.
No,
Now,
not
Lord of the Rings is a fictional book that was written in the it's debate when it's written, but it's about a bunch of fantasy creatures who hate jewelry and throw them in volcanoes.
Can you stop, please? We're going long on this episode. You're such a bad person. Anyway, we have a couple more news stories because this one is not as important. The other two are kind of cool. The Mensa awards were announced. Now, for the record, virtually nobody cares about the Mensa awards, but they announce them every year, and sometimes our kinds of games get mentioned. So, Corey, which ones in particular were hit?
Well, I mean, it's a good selection of games. This year's winners for the Mensa Award are In the Footsteps of Darwin, which is a great game. Wandering Towers, which is really cool with these big chunky towers that move along. Abduction, which is cute as anything about abducting little rubber duckies. And I've heard lots of people tell me it's great. I haven't played it. And Veil of Eternity, which is just blowing up all over the place. People love this card game. Yeah. Finally, First in Flight, a historical aviation board game, which I remember when it came out and kind of was under the radar a bit. I have not played it.
Yeah.
So
nobody really cares about the Mensa awards. I mean, I apologize for those who actually
they're always listed.
This.
It's one of the established awards. It's been around forever.
Yeah.
Games Magazine kind of touted it a bit.
But
they're still giving their awards.
For the longest time, it went like to abstract games, and now finally they're actually looking more at the games that most of us actually play. So it's now had some history with some relatively popular games in hobby gaming. So it's kind of cool. So here's our friends over at Chip Theory, the Andrews. Andrew and Andrews. Are there 3 Andrews there?
And Josh and Josh.
And 2 Joshes. It's like the whole company are Andrews and Joshes.
They're not creative on company owner names.
If you're an Andrew or a Josh, you can get a job over at Chip Theory Games. And they're excited. And this came directly from them. They've excited to announce a long-term acquisition and partnership with Manny Tremblay and his brand new studio, Neon Night Games. Chip Theory and Neon Night have come to an agreement that will make Neon Night a Chip Theory Games studio. Do you know more about this?
Pretty cool. Well, Manny Tremblay is the designer of Dice Throne, hot designer. And Manny is the designer on Chip Theory's new title, WROTH, which, by the way, has the most visceral, exciting, weird art I've seen in just ages. So it's interesting that there's an association now with Manny and Chip Theory. Manny's studio, Neon Night Games, was basically created for a title in that world, which is on Kickstarter right now. And I apologize, the title is almost exactly Neon Nights. But it's really the partnership now between these two groups has a lot of potential. It kind of was a surprise. I haven't known Chip Theory to acquire anybody or partner in this way with anybody. So this is new territory.
Yeah, they're a company that has done very well with a sort of a smaller number of products, but they are really aggressive about advertising their company and getting them out there. Very happy to hear
Yeah,
about this. I love to hear when small companies are combining
of
in
course.
interesting ways like this.
I
Our
just want to put
final,
out
go ahead.
there, oh, Neon Knights, first uh their first title was Neon Knights 2086, I believe, on Kickstarter.
Very, very cool.
So
Our final story, before we move on, is about Magic the Gathering. And it's welcome back, Black Lotus. Dicebreaker.com reported that Magic the Gathering's single most famous card has returned to the top of the most expensive cardboard pile list, thanks to a private auction where someone paid a soul-squeezing $3 million for a copy
million.
considered to be in perfect condition. So if you remember, about a year ago, Post Malone uh, bought the One Ring, one of one card from that Magic the Gathering set that had just been released for $2 million. And this is now the most expensive Magic the Gathering card at $3 million. And it is rated 10 of 10. It is in perfect, pristine condition. I assume this is an alpha. I didn't actually see where it said that it was an alpha versus a beta. I believe beta had Black Lotus as well. But amazing that now somebody has
The
decided.
biggest thing about this was that this particular Black Lotus card is one of the very, very, very few cards that was rated a 10 out of 10,
Mhm.
pristine, no flaws whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it on dicebreaker.com. They have it and they're showing it under the plastic thing, the pristine 10
Yeah.
of 10 rating. Um, wow, $3 million.
Yeah.
I have a lot that I could do with
Now,
$3 million, and one of them is
I
not
I
buy
need
one card.
I need to go back and apologize and edit. Manny Tremblay's new company, Neon Night Games, their game that they released first out of Neon Nights is Neon Rain, designed by Manny Tremblay and Aaron Hine. I misspoke. Their company, Neon Night, is named and started with Neon Rain.
Okay, that's all right. I think you're allowed to make a mistake once in a while, or like
I am
10
not.
times 10 times an episode, like you usually do.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah, you're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
All right, very. So as we went very long, we're like 45 minutes into this episode. We're gonna go directly to play testing because we always like to engage. This is the way we always can engage with you because we're gonna put that question up there and review what we did from last week's question. So let's get over right now to play testing. So, Corey, last week, of course, because you're better at this than I am, and certainly better than Ignacy, you've created a great question for people. And not only did you create this great question, you also summarized the results of this question. So,
I
please,
did. I went through all the answers. So the question is, do you read the flavor text on cards in the games you play? Do you read them every time you play, or yeah, maybe only the first time you see the card? So I thought this was a great one to be able to go through and summarize, and it is split exactly 50-50
that is
of
pretty
people
funny.
who read flavor text and people who don't read flavor text. I love it. I had a 10 to 10 with, I think, three people I counted as undecided. So it was great.
10 and 10. That's like kind of like amazing that it would go that exactly like that. And Sarah Simpson, she says, I definitely read the flavor text, at least to myself. If it's really good, like a callback to something that's already happened in the game or a deep cut in a favorite IP, I might share it with the other players. That's kind of cool too. I think that that's probably more of what I do than anything. Like I'll look at it like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then I'll put it
And
down.
I am not a flavor text reader.
Really, yeah, I guess that's kind of the way you and I won't. I
you
don't
we are
always do
very
it.
different players. I know that. We have a lot
Oh,
of crossovers, but you are the theme guy. I am the mechanics
well,
guy.
that is definitely true. I mean, I almost don't want to play a game that has no theme. Now, having said that, I absolutely play themeless games. But you know what offends me? Dumb themes. you,
Paste
I'm
it
gonna,
on theme.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna, I'm gonna make, I'm
you
gonna
got to commit.
I'm gonna say this one because I just here on the cruise I introduced a couple of people to Scout. Right, Scout is just a great ladder climbing. That's not trick taking, Corey.
Yeah,
It's ladder climbing. A great ladder climbing game.
it's
And
a subgenre.
and literally people were looking at the cards, and they were, this is the new version, the Oink version. They're looking at it like, why are there people's names on here? And I'm like, ignore it. It's
It's
dumb.
circus
It's
themed.
so ridiculous. The original game without a theme has made so much more sense. It just, that did not need a
Yeah.
theme. And the theme they put on it was silly. So,
I loved Kevin Martin's reply, who's at Agblade, said, "Oh, you ask, do you read? Sorry, that's too much text. I can't answer the question."
it's great. Sev Blakes from France says, only when I'm extremely bored during the game.
I like that a lot.
That's a great answer. Chris Dupree, usually read flavor text for the first time and in between turns. Unless it's a superhero game, I tend to read those each time or say it when playing the card. I mean, yeah, it's it's definitely one
Yeah,
of those things that is split, right? I mean,
yeah.
even if you are a theme person, there's a lot going on in some of these games. So
And there's flavor text in theme games versus flavor text not. Peter Haroldson said, first time for sure, and then most of the time for more thematic games. In some games, it's mandatory to read them out loud, like Arkham games, Betrayal, and House of the Hill. Love that many designers hide Easter eggs or other references in the flavor text. And if it's a Middle Earth game, for example, I love the callback to the books. So I am 100% agree with all of that.
let me read one more before we move on. Paul
There were
Owen.
funny answers.
Yeah, there really are. Paul Owen, I know Paul. He says, generally, yes, because thematic context helps with immersion. And I'm glad Steven specifically mentioned Terraforming Mars because my favorite flavor text of all time is from Demos Down. That's a card in the game. Both my son and I make
Deimos.
a point, Demos, tomato, tomato. Both my son and I make a point of reading it out loud as we play the card. We weren't using that moon anyway. That's a great thing, right? So those who, terraforming Mars, those who know the actual stuff that goes around and about Mars knows that it has two moons, and Deimos or Demos is the small one that is not even round. It's kind of weird. And, they weren't really using that moon. So
my
they just
favorite my
slammed it into
favorite
the planet.
flavor text example is Johnny Pat Canton designed a game called Sierra West that had a collection of animals in pioneer frontier Western America. And the European publisher put in badgers. And they were very obviously European badgers, which do not exist in the American West. And the flavor text is, we don't need no stinking badgers.
Oh, very, very cute. Very, very cute. All right, Corey, as usual, you gave us the new question for the week. What is it?
So, new question.
Do you
Do
want me to
you
read it? Go ahead.
I had to look at it. I don't
Yeah,
I put in like all the questions
you put
because
in
you're
10 of them
too
here, and then I just
lazy.
pick one. I know. Yes, yes, yes. Go ahead.
Do you call games on to other owners? If so, how do you do it? Online, flea markets, conventions, math trades, or just free gifts?
So,
So I'm just curious how people deal with getting games out of their
yeah,
libraries.
I bet some people, I bet there'll be at least a group of people that say no, they've never called a game, or if they have, it's like a one-off kind of thing, a
I
sale or
called
this.
about 500 over pandemic. I put them out on my porch and said I'm not coming outside to say hello, but if you're in the neighborhood, just take whatever you want.
And people did that.
And people did that.
Wow, wow, that is pretty cool. So I have made culling several times in my life. When I left New Jersey, I gave away a boatload of games. Just didn't want to bring them all, weren't playing them. And then,
Sure, sure.
like when I changed over my game table, when I went and I bought this really cool game theory table, of the Origins. Shout out to those guys; they're doing a great job. The guy who bought the table says, "Hey, you have any like Magic the Gathering cards for sale or board games?" And I'm like, well, I've got these 4.5 huge boxes of games. I had put them in like moving boxes, and I was just gonna try to give them away to the Dice Tower for auctioning off for the Jack Fassel Memorial Fund or whatever they wanted to do. And Tom didn't want them. Okay, cool. So I just said, here you go. And I gave him all these games for free with the game table because I mean there were some good games in there and there was a lot of just junk that I wasn't going to be playing at any time in my life. So that's how I deal with it. I used to do. Did you ever do a math trade, Corey? I was an
I
avid math
never
trader.
did. I like watching it, and I'm fascinated that it actually works.
Yep.
But I've never done it.
Yeah. So everybody out there, you let us know right now. Do you cull your library and pass games on to other owners? If so, how do you do it? You give them away, free gifts, conventions, math trades. Come on, let us know and go over to the guild on Board Game Geek. Find the playtesting thread, playtesting 317, and let us know your answer. Let us get over now to the final scoring.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you all so much for listening and help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts or watch Board Games Insider on the Podfather of Gaming YouTube channel. You want to be part of this podcast? You can. Just ask us questions for our strategy and tactics segment by posting them in the guild on Board Game Geek and answer our question to you in the play testing thread. Check out the websites, portalgamesus.com, podfathergaming.com, dicetowerdish.com, and play2zgames.com. On social media, like our Facebook pages, which are /BoardGamesInsider, /PortalGamesUS, /PodfatherGaming, and /Play2zgames. Speak directly to Ignacy, Corey, and Steven on X and Instagram at PortalGamesUS, at PodfatherGaming, at DicetowerDish.com, and the YouTube channels are Portal Games Studios, the Podfather of Gaming, and Aboveboard TV. Not 3 times, Corey, which he just copy and pasted Aboveboard TV 3 times. But
Well, you'll read anything in the script.
I'll read almost anything in here. And on TikTok, Ignacy is Portal Games US. I wonder if he's still using TikTok. We really would love to see you in person at upcoming conventions. So KublaCon's the next one. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. Board Games Insider, professionally edited by Joshua Bowman from Tabletop Submarine Podcast. Reach out to Joshua, and he might do your podcast too at tabletopsubmarine@gmail.com. And Ray Greenlee does our intro, outro, and in between segments. Beautiful voice work. Reach out to him at raygreenleevoiceover.com. So Bonacor and Bonacori will be at KublaCon. I love that. You wrote that. I think that's cool.
I know. I've been avoiding that pun for a long old time.
Bonacori. As long as my name is first in that, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see you guys in San Francisco at
Yeah, San
KublaCon.
Francisco, May 24th.
Memorial Day weekend. Be
Yep.
there if you're on the West Coast. If you're in Northern California, be there. Corey, can't wait to see you, my friend. And we'll
Absolutely.
talk to you all soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.